Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to Voice of the Coast. I'm Chris Hunter. I saw this online the other day, and it really kind of surprised me that, according to the article, Louisiana is in what we call a fire ant quarantine. A little bit surprising because actually, from talking, it's actually been something that's been in play since the late 1950s. But this is Paul Bongarzone from the LSUAgCenter, St. Mary Parish office, who's going to tell us about what that means a little bit if you've never seen that before. Like I say, I'd never heard of it before. But starting with fire ants in general, they're not a species native to the United States. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And so they're not native to the United States, but they are native to the Americas. And so they didn't have to travel far to get here. They're actually from the central portion of South America, cutting across different countries there. And their initial point of entry was not that far. They came into the U.S. In the 1930s through the port of Mobile, actually. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, they're making the century mark very soon here in the U.S. and their travel from Alabama over to Louisiana happened within 20 years or so. So they've been around quite some time here in the U.S.
And now they're pretty prevalent all the way across the Gulf Coast.
They are very much populating a good portion of, especially the southeastern corner of the entire United States. In fact, the quarantine that you reference, because of this population and its size, extends from central portion of Texas all the way over to the Atlantic coast, down to Florida, up to North Carolina, and that northernmost line hovers around the Tennessee, the northernmost point of Tennessee. And there's some parts in between and some spots in California and such as well, but it's substantial.
Why, if they're not native to this region of the world, why have they proliferated so well?
It's a good question. So they came in through ships, which can happen with many invasive things. And in this case, these ants are aggressive, and they have the ability to, let's say, outcompete some native ant species. Whenever you have something that is non-native, in many cases there is a lack of natural predators. There may be the ability to have substantial food sources and have their populations grow at the expense of what may be native.
Right. And maybe the reason it's coming up in the news now is that, this is the season for them. This is when they become active.
It is. And for anyone who may be paying attention to when they begin to pop up, anytime in the springtime, the soils get above 65 degrees consistently, and we have some moisture and we have general warmth is when they become active again. This is relevant not just for being aware of the goings-on in your landscapes and so on and so forth, but also if they are present in your landscape or on your property, it is around April when you can really begin to start to think about treatment options.
Why are they so much more of a problem just for humans trying to deal with them than other types of ants?
That's a good question. So going back to a previous response, because of this not being their native territory and in general a lack of predators and natural elements to sort of balance out an environment that is something that has more harmony, let's say, when an area has native species, they are able to use that aggressive nature, to use their voracious appetites to increase their population size with relative ease. Specifically, if we are comparing these fire ants, and they're decent size, they range between an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch, third of an inch, and their aggressive behavior, they can actually negatively impact native ant populations. Mm-hmm. And again, this allows them to have their population sizes grow and do what they've done thus far, as we're alluding to the quarantine.
And of course, they just don't bite; they sting.
They do, and so It's an unfortunate, but if you're interested in science and agriculture, interesting process. So they take their mouth parts and they latch onto, let's say, a human piece of skin. They latch onto the skin, and that is with their head part. And then they use their stinger to inject venom over and over again to result in these blistering, itching wounds that we have to deal with afterwards.
It itches. All right, tell you what, we need to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk specifically about what this quarantine means. Not as bad as it sounds. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Voice of the Coast. Our guest is Paul Bongarzone with the LSUAgCenter, the St. Mary office. We're talking about a fire ant quarantine that has actually been around since the late 1950s, but it's kind of popping up in the news because it's the season that they get, fire ants get a little more active, they get a lot more active. But an interesting thing you were telling me before, while the quarantine is primarily a commercial concern, not a residential concern, at the same time, they're actually beneficial to one of our primary businesses in this region, which is the sugarcane industry.
That is correct. That is correct. So in sugarcane production, there are a few insect pests that are problematic year in, year out. There are a few different types of what we call borers, because they bore into the stem of the sugarcane. But what the fire ants do is because of that voracious appetite that I referenced before, they actually help manage the population of these borers through eating the larvae. And so the fire ant population amongst sugarcane production is probably one of the few areas where they are happy to be seen.
Does the sugarcane industry have to take specific steps to deal with the fire ants when they go through the whole harvesting process, or are they just kind of naturally weeded out when we refine sugarcane into raw sugar?
Yeah, good question. So basically, when sugarcane gets harvested from the field, it immediately gets loaded into a wagon. Those wagon gets filled up, and they get brought to one of our 11 mills throughout the state, 2 of which are here in St. Mary Parish, of course. The treatment that sugarcane undergoes once they get to the mills is very thorough, very extensive. It includes cleaning, stripping of all plant debris, and pressing repeatedly, getting that clear liquid and cleaning that out and heating that up. So under no circumstances could a fire ant survive that process that the sugarcane goes through at the mills, regardless.
Okay, so the quarantine. Let's get to that big question. As I mentioned, it's a commercial issue. It's not a residential issue. What does a fire ant quarantine mean?
Yeah, so the federal fire ant quarantine was established in 1958 at a national level, and over time, the states that are under that quarantine has grown to the current population parameters that I referenced before. But basically, if at any point an entity wants to transport hay, sod, soil, mulch, or even equipment that is dealing with these kinds of elements, construction equipment, agricultural equipment, outside of the quarantine area, then an inspection by the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and Forestry, LDAF, would have to take place. And it is probably more prominently known by commercial entities because those who are engaged in these kind of activities of transporting those kinds of materials outside of the quarantine area must undergo this process.
Right, okay, so it's not anything we have to worry about sitting at home, but we still have to worry about fire ants. And we're running out of time here, but if you can give a quick synopsis, what are the most obvious places where we have to be careful looking for fire ants? What's the best treatment for them?
Certainly. So fire ants, once we see their mounds, that is months worth of work, up to 25 feet tunneling under the ground. And so those mounds can be treated directly with a drench and there is some other materials that can be used for the mound treatment directly, but they can also have baits that are applied in a broadcast fashion across, let's say, a lawn, and the Texas A&M Extension System recommends a Texas two-step, which would be to apply a broadcast application of a bait for fire ants in the lawn or in the landscape, and then as necessary, treat directly the mounds.
Awesome. Appreciate the information. Thanks for coming in, Paul. I'm going to have you come back and talk about some other issues with the Ag Center.
Yes, sir.
All right. And thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time on Voice of the Coast. Have a great night.